to a rediscovery of our strength, not just our struggles. And that, to me, aligns beautifully with Unity's principles that the divine lives within us. The gay bisexual support group I lead isn't about changing anyone. It's about affirming people, holding space, offering healing and truth. So I just want to let you know, Gordon's actually painting his kitchen this week. So I affirm, Gordon, that you're going to have the best looking kitchen this side of the Mississippi. So anyway, I want to start with something kind of funny this morning. Charles Fillmore walked into a coffee shop and asked the barista, and the barista asked, "Sir, how would you like your coffee? With cream, sugar, or divine substance?" And he smiled and said, "I affirm this coffee is already whole and complete. But sure, a little cream won't hurt." Anyway, go ahead. I think we're waiting for a slide. So I want to just tell you, there was a time, and this is actually kind of from Kimberly Braun's book as well. There was a time I thought I had to choose between being myself and being seen. I believed connection meant shrinking, softening my voice, hiding my truth, and seemingly smaller than I was. But life breaks us open, not in big moments, but quietly, slowly, through the hard places and sacred aches. And somehow, these aches call me forward to be more fully me. Okay, so if you've been following along, we've been talking about miracles for the last couple weeks. And one of my favorite songs from last week was "A Million Dreams" that Bill actually wrote, or didn't write, but he sang. So anyway, we're on this journey with Gordon. And so I'm hoping that today will kind of help move us forward as a church in what we're doing here. So yes, I want to say there were times where I thought I had to trade authenticity for approval. That being called meant something else, something more holy, more certain, more polished. But the call I've learned is not asking to erase ourselves. It is inviting us to remember ourselves, not in the spotlight or being shining or being perfect versions of ourselves of what we think we should be, but it's a mirror reflecting that truest moment of whole version of who we already are. Even as a child, I knew I was different, but it was not just the fact that I was gay. That's a big thing when you're small, but there was something deeper. I was drawn to spirit in a way that I did not yet have words for. I listened to old religious music from the 60s. When other kids were blasting rock and roll and pop, maybe that sounds a little strange, but that was me. But it said something in me that I could not explain. By the time I was 13, I was already preaching to the neighborhood kids using my bureau or my drawers, but no robe, just a heart on fire with something that I did not understand. I felt that call early, and even though has taken me years and a lot of undoing and old programming, I now see that being called never meant I had to leave myself behind. The call was not to be less of me, it was to be more of me. When I was young, I first heard the story of Samuel, a boy who was sleeping in the temple when he heard someone calling his name. At first, he thought it was Eli, the priest, so he got up and said, "Here I am." This happened 3 times. Finally, Eli realized what was happening and told him, "Go back and say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" The story stuck with me, and I remember thinking that this I relate to Samuel somehow, and I'm not sure why. I felt something stirring in my heart, a call I did not fully understand, but I knew it was real. And I found myself asking, God, what do you want of me? Even though I was just a kid, something in me already knew I was called to serve. And later that song that Todd just sang, Lord, here I am, became like a prayer to me, a prayer of listening with an open heart and open ears. And even now I still wrestle with the tension between being fully myself and answering that call. But like Samuel, I kept saying, here I am, God, I'm listening. Because the call is real. It's sacred, and it comes for each of us in different ways, calling us into a life of love, service, and purpose. Samuel's story starts with his mother, Hannah. She longed deeply for a child and prayed that if God gave her a son, she would dedicate him to the Lord. When her prayers were answered, she kept her promise and brought Samuel to the temple to be raised by Eli, the priest. That was not a normal childhood for him, but Samuel grew up surrounded by rituals and sacred practice, but also a lot of dysfunction. You see, Eli's sons, who were supposed to be holy men, abused their power, and Samuel would have seen all of this good and the broken and felt the tension. He probably knew he wasn't wanted at home in the usual sense. He had been given over to the temple away from the life most kids knew. And yet, it was right there in the middle of all that confusion and isolation that God called him. As Samuel's life began to change, it's still just a little hot. He became the first prophet since Moses, a leader, a truth teller, and a vessel for God, a wisdom and full of wisdom and a kingmaker. If we were going to look at Samuel's story metaphysically, it would be more than history. It's a metaphor for a spiritual journey. Metaphysically, it means Hannah's longing to take that soul's deep desire to live for something greater. That temple represents that inner sanctuary where we go when we turn inward and seek spirit. Eli's sons show us the chaos and the noise that often surround us when we're trying to listen. The repeated call reminds us that spiritual awakening doesn't always happen instantly. It takes time, trust, and stillness. And Samuel's response, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening," is the moment we shift from striving to surrender, from doubt to devotion. Samuel reminds us that we don't need to be perfect or have perfect circumstances to hear that call. Sometimes the loneliness, the confusion, the not fitting in, was exactly here where it's exactly here in that chaos where God speaks. And when we listen, when we truly listen, we become a channel for something bigger than ourselves. When I was a child, it was not seen. It was a time when children were supposed to be seen and not heard. You know, I know that most of you know that. You know that story. You've lived it. And even seeing was not encouraged. Children were expected to go about their own business while the adults worked out their own challenges. Growing up as part of, as a stereotypical Gen X, I spent a lot of times alone on the porch by myself. And I know many of you have had those moments like that too. Times when the world seemed to move around you while you felt invisible, like your voice didn't quite belong. That longing to be truly seen, to be truly connected, has stayed with me. It shaped me the way I move through the world, the way I listen, the way I minister. And it's a feeling I believe many of us carry across generations and communities. Even as an adult, I still felt pushed away, like I didn't matter, especially as a gay man. I was told sometimes clearly, sometimes quietly, that I was not good enough. That message echoed from my childhood into my adulthood, shaping how I saw myself and how others saw me. I think about the deep wounds of trauma, the ways it shapes our identity and our relationships. That trauma I carry made me feel needy, like I needed someone to hold my hand just to survive. Now, as I live into that calling and practice the spiritual principles and see the spiritual principles, I see more clearly those childhood wounds can shape us, challenge us, but they don't have to define us forever. Healing is possible. As someone called to ministry, especially for other gay men who have faced religious trauma, family trauma, abuse, or neglect, I've been there. I know the loneliness this world can bring, but I also know that there's hope. There's a path beyond pain and silence. For a long time, I chose not to be deeply involved with the gay community, not because I did not want to connect, but because the pain I saw happening within our own community. Yes, there were many loving, wonderful people there, but I also saw how sometimes we hurt each other, sometimes even more deeply than the straight world. I believe pride is important. It's about honoring ourselves and claiming our worth. But I also see how pride, when rooted in fear or unresolved pain, can divide us and cause harm. There's a saying that people hurt people. And so I ask, how do we break that cycle? How do we create real, lasting connections and love? That question has sometimes made me take a step back. And it's also part of the loneliness that I have carried. Not just because loneliness from family or church, but from the very community I long to be part of. Healing is not easy, and it starts with seeing each other, not as enemies or competition, but as fellow travelers. Wounded, yes, but also full of hope. And honestly, I feel tired of watching us hurt each other, sometimes even here in sacred places, in churches, or in spiritual centers. We say love is love, but too often that love is conditional. Conditional on how we look, how masculine how you sound, or how you dressed, or how old you are, or how smooth your skin is, if you have a flat stomach. How closely can you pass for an ideal that was never meant to include most of us? If you're femme, you're often too much. If you're older, you're treated like you're invisible. If you're disabled, fat, trans, or just not considered cool to feel like you belong, and that's not even mentioning people of color, those who have accents, anyone born on the other side of an imaginary line. I call this dynamic the fishbowl church versus the measuring stick church. In the fishbowl church, everyone watches you. You're on display. Others are polite, but you can feel their scrutiny. In the measuring tape church, it's about compassion. You're being measured against unspoken standards. Everyone seems to know, based on appearances, youth, gender, performance, and privilege. What's heartbreaking is that we endure eternal harassment only to recreate it inside sacred spaces like this. We've learned to survive rejection and we reject others. Here is that painful truth. We need each other. Turn to the person next to you and tell them that you are needed. Go ahead. Go ahead and turn to the other person and tell them that I need you. We need each other, not to be polished, the healed, or those who know how to navigate places like this, but we need the queen and the cowboy. We need the twink and the bear. We need the drag mother and the church deacon. We need the angry and the quiet ones. We need the still discovering themselves. The outside world still wants to erase us. But you know what? You know what my fear is? That we're going to erase each other first. And that would be a tragedy, wouldn't it? So I invite you back to love, not love as a spectacle or prize for those who meet certain standards. I mean love as solidarity. Love that sees, love that says, you belong, you matter. And I may not understand your experience, but I will not turn away from you. Turn to the other person and tell them that you belong and you matter, and I understand you. Go ahead. That is the kind of love. That is the kind of love we are called to practice. Jesus said in John 13:34, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. You must love each other. This is not a suggestion. This is a command. And I call to love beyond labels, beyond judgment, beyond any dividing line. It's the heart of what the Spirit is asking us. It's okay, Todd. There's a phone going on. To love each other as we are, fully, unconditionally. So this is a call back to love, not about performance. Not love as reward, but love as solidarity. So I went back too far. I think that's what happened. The phone confused me. Well, thank you. I love you too. Thank you. I love you as well. So, this is about, we crave connection. All of us crave connection. That goes beyond belief, beyond performance, beyond judgment, beyond the role we're playing just to be accepted. This commandment Jesus gave wasn't about doctrine to recite. It was a way of being. He didn't say agree with one another, because, sometimes we don't, right? And he says, don't fix one another. Our job is not to fix them, but to love them. To love one another, that is where the miracle begins. When we stop asking, what do you believe, and start asking, how are you? When we stop asking you, are you in or you're out? And start saying, you belong here. The miracle is not a bolt of lightning from heaven, and that happens not just by belief, it happens by love. And the kind of love changes everything. There's a paradox I've come to notice, one that shows up in both Buddhism and the teachings of Jesus. In Buddhism, we're invited to let go of attachment, of cravings, of the illusion that anything in the world can truly make us whole or happy. And Jesus echoes something similar. We are in the world, but not of the world. And that's where I find myself, 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Maybe you know that, just like I do. But because when we start letting go of what holds us back, our identities, our comforts, our communities, we begin to realize not everyone could walk this path. Not everyone's ready. And it's not about being better, it's about a choice, a calling. When people walk through these doors, I believe many have already made up their minds, and sometimes without even knowing it. It's like some come in here and say, this feels like home. This is great. I love it. And then there's others that say, wait a minute, this isn't me. But for those who stay, something deeper resonates. Unity invites us beyond religion into spirituality, beyond dogma into practice, beyond surface into depth. And I've been walking this path for 11 years, and it's been a long, grace-filled journey through heartbreak, letting go, and discovering. I needed spiritual principles that met me where I was, and you know what? I found them here. Unity teaches us that healing is possible, that community matters, that churches or spiritual centers are meant to be places of transformation. And that's why I do what I do here. from recovery work to diabetes support to leading the gay and bisexual support groups. This is ministry rooted in love, empowerment, and healing. Some of you have asked, what is the 16 steps? They are, and why do they matter? Unlike the 12 steps, I'm not dishing the 12 steps because I'm not. The 12 steps begin with powerlessness. You're powerless over your addiction. The 16 steps begin with power, that you have the power within you to fight what you are fighting. They're holistic, inclusive, affirming. They're inviting us to a rediscovery of our strength, not just our struggles. And that, to me, aligns beautifully with Unity's principles that the divine lives within us. The gay bisexual support group I lead isn't about changing anyone. It's about affirming people, holding space, offering healing and truth in a world that often seeks to erase or diminish us. Unity is about release, about remembering who we are, about coming home to the truth that we are loved, whole, and worthy, not someday, but right now. Right now. And yes, it can feel lonely, but that loneliness sometimes Kimberly Braun, Emily Cady, and Eric Butterworth all speak about can become a doorway, a teacher. A loneliness isn't just about absence, it's a space where something sacred can emerge. There's a difference about being lonely and being alone. And I used to fear being alone. Now I sometimes crave it because I know that's where Spirit often speaks the loudest. And I believe we're being called to make space, to make more space for others to find that same peace. That's why I believe it's time for us to grow, and so does Gordon, physically and spiritually, communally. We need larger spaces to welcome the people who keep walking through our doors, saying, this is what I've been searching for all my life, and I finally found it. But here's the truth. We can't do this alone. It's going to take all of us, every single one of us. And that happens not just by belief, it happens by love. That is where the miracles begin. Know this, there's a revolution that we need right now. And it's not just politics. It's personal, it's spiritual. It's about how we show up for each other, especially when it's hard. We need each other more than ever. Maybe that's where we begin. Because that's where the work I believe we are called to do. It's the work I'm doing here at Unity. It's the work that a lot of us are doing right now. Whether it's recovery, whether it's support groups, whether it's grief group, whether it's sitting in sacred spaces, having conversations about someone remembering who they are, it's the work that we are doing right here at Unity. This is the heart of our ministry. Yes, we have a beautiful church that meets every Sunday with beautiful smiling faces. But the real work, it happens through those doors back there in the back of the church. During the week, it's where we meet people. It's where we serve people. It's where love goes beyond belief. It looks like the men's group, the women's group, the spiritual counseling, recovery circles, yoga, Tai Chi, Reiki, and sacred healing, even something as joyful and disarming as gay bingo. Yes. These aren't just side activities, these are ministries. This is where we invite people into who we are. They get to know who we are in the back, not just on Sunday mornings when things might feel intimidating or formal, but during the week when people are seeking help, healing, or just connection. Like I've said before, Unity isn't just a spiritual center. It's a teaching and healing spiritual center. And I want you to know that we're not alone in this vision. In the next couple of weeks, Gordon is going to show us pictures from other Unity Center churches that started just like us, that may just have one service and about maybe 80 to 100, 120 people in that service. But they stepped out. They believed that they could be bigger, and they are. So, here's an example. Can we go ahead and show the slide? This is Unity of the Hills. It's welcoming. It has acreage where people can do picnics. It also has a labyrinth on it. Next slide. This is the chapel. This is actually the sanctuary. Fits a lot of people, right? Next slide. This is one of several classrooms. One of several classrooms. It tells us that, hey, you matter. Come in, join us. Next slide. This is the chapel for our prayer chaplains. You know, it would be great to have a place where they can make phone calls or meet with people during the week to let everybody know that they are there. The commitment is ongoing care. And the next slide. So this is a patio that they have. Inside is the fellowship hall. It's bigger than ours. But we would be able to host like weddings and big engagements and stuff like that. So it's important, it's about life. It's about making connection. And as they walk in the front doors, which it's not here, Gordon's going to send that to you. There's a big, huge welcome center. You come in, and they'll take you to this side, to the church's classrooms, to maybe the office, to this side, to the fellowship area, to this side, to the sanctuary, wherever you want to go. It's amazing, but we're ready for it. We are ready for it. We need a space that says that we've been expecting you. You see, our work is just beginning. But here's the thing, we're running out of space here. We're crawling over each other. And the dream we all carry for a bigger building, a wider welcome, a deeper reach, that dream needs all of us to bring it into reality. We'll grow because of what we're doing. Because we're growing, we're healing, we are transforming lives, and people are walking in the door saying, finally, this is it, a place that I've been waiting for. So let's create it together. Let's make room for them, for each other, and for the Spirit that keeps calling us forward. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. And the time is now. So let me say this clearly. We're called to get into the weeds, not to be swallowed by them, but to learn how to grow in them. That's where God meets us in the overgrown, tangled parts of our lives, where nothing feels clear, and yet even there something sacred begins. As Kimberly Braun wrote in The Miracles of the Naked Light, the light doesn't ask us to be perfect. It just asks us to be honest, to stand naked with all our thorns and still say, I am here. I am willing to let love grow anyway. That's where the miracle happens. Not in the flawless garden, but in the cracked ones as well. Where even the weeds start to grow, because sometimes that very thing that would ruin us becomes the very thing that roots us. The light doesn't shame your weeds, it illuminates them. And when you carry and stop hiding from them, and you stand there, you name them and bless them, you begin to feel the flow. Not because you're fixed everything, because I haven't, God knows I haven't, but because we said yes, yes to the call, yes to our own sacred, beautiful, imperfect life. So from one minister or MIT guy, minister in training, to all of you, I'm going to say, whether you're here in person or on Facebook, I say to you, come out in your first year or your 50th year. Come out from your fear and into the truth. Come out into love, come out into freedom. Come out so I want to leave you with this. Come out of the closet you've been hiding in, because closets were meant for clothes. You were never meant to hide there. It's not for souls. They were meant for storage. They're dark, they're damp, they're dreary. They're not built for breathing. They're built for storage, but you are not meant to be stored there. You were meant to be seen. You were meant to be heard. You were meant to be here, fully, boldly, beautiful, and alive. And I probably have already ended this several times, but I just want to say, this is not a community that asks to shrink. We're not asking you to shrink. We're asking us to get bigger. This is a spiritual center that asks you to show up as you are, still grow, still heal, still become, because love, real love, doesn't wait for perfection. It begins like the moment we say, here I am. I'm ready to be seen. I'm ready to be loved. That's the kind of love that heals. Thank you. Amen.